You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. And be sure to smash that like button. Massive recruiting event this past weekend for LSU, the Bayou Splash. Our buddy Billy Embody on 3. Good enough to pinch hit for Shea Dixon here this week, the vacationing Shea Dixon. Billy, we appreciate you, man. How are you?
Doing well, guys. How are you?
Doing awesome. Hey, big picture, 10,000-foot overview of the Bayou Splash. What were the biggest takeaways?
The big takeaway is LSU was swinging for some of their top targets here late. I mean, they have so much of their class kind of done in a sense. I mean, they'll still have a chance to add, numerous guys into the fold. They had Aiden Anding, Rustin defensive back, on campus for a visit. They had 5-star wide receiver Jamie French on campus for a visit. Had some other targets as well, but comparatively to last year, when they closed with guys like Dominic McKinley and Gabriel Relaford, and were going after Colin Simmons and players like that, they really have a lot of their top commits locked in and coming through to hang out again with the staff. And that was kind of the vibe. And then 2026, it was a good opportunity to lay the groundwork, even more so for some of those guys that maybe haven't been on campus as much as others. And so it's a different vibe. You're in a good situation with one of the best classes already in the country, rather than trying to make some waves heading into the fall, close with what ended up being a top 5 class.
Jaylen Chapman is one of those prospects that committed, offensive lineman out of Warren Easton to New Orleans for 2026. What can you tell us about him, Billy?
Yeah, I think he's kind of a prototypical center prospect, and Warren Easton is one of the top producing talent programs in the state of Louisiana. Another thing with Jaylen is I expect him to be a leader in that 2026 class. He's one of the guys that is very active in the state, working out, getting out, and building relationships across the class. And so Brad Davis and Frank Wilson really liked him early on, and they prioritized him. He actually had an offer very early on last summer, and so this has kind of been building. And lo and behold, he hit me up and said, "Hey, just letting you know, got done with my visit, and I'll be going public with a commitment here." And he did just that to kick off the week. So that was a nice addition for LSU to get him in the fold and keep building in the trenches, because Brad Davis just keeps recruiting, it seems like, one class ahead of the game. And so to get him on board, it just continues to show the work Brad Davis, Frank Wilson is doing in New Orleans. And this is a nice pickup for LSU and a guy they can develop into a center for the future.
One of the things, Billy, right or wrong, that people look at that say, oh, well, he's a 3-star, 6'2", 265 is where he's listed. Can you kind of walk us through, especially this early in the recruiting process for a guy that's a rising junior, what we should, if anything, make of that rating and ranking right now?
Yeah, for right now, the big thing that we try to do as ranking services is we don't want to necessarily overdo it on a guy's ranking early. We'd rather be building guys up, and naturally there's going to be a top 100. There's going to be an initial list of the guys that are viewed as very, very, very talented prospects. And Jaylen is, as an offensive lineman, somebody that you can expect to continue to add strength, continue to add mass. And so his ranking could very well rise, over the coming months, and 2 more seasons of high school football. So offensive linemen are tricky. If they don't jump out at you like Jackson Cantwell, who's a 6'7", 315-pound 5-star who LSU had on campus this past weekend, there are going to be guys that maybe take a little bit more time to see their ranking go up relative to the rest of the class, where you see some of these behemoths that are very well known early on as highly touted prospects. And, we see some of those highly touted guys, you see the other guys catch up to them, whether it be just growing older, getting stronger, showing their athleticism in different settings. But yeah, that's kind of the way to view it. I mean, he had offers from, I believe, Alabama, USC, Oregon, all over the country. So he's a highly thought of prospect in his own right for sure.
Billy Embody, On3 the Bengal Tiger. He's on Twitter at Billy Embody. Let's talk about the safety position. So Anquan Fagans is a guy that was at the Bayou Splash. Correct me if I'm wrong. It seemed like maybe there were some good vibes there. He ends up picking Auburn, and then LSU turns around and offers Jacob Bradford out of Catholic High in Baton Rouge. Let's take those one at a time. What happened there with Fagans, and is the Bradford offer a response to Fagans ultimately picking Auburn?
Yeah, with Anquan Fagans, he's been on LSU's radar since the prior defensive staff. He's visited multiple times. There was some buzz early on that LSU was going to be positioned, to be right there for him at the end. But over the past really 6 months, it had become apparent that he was going to probably end up at Auburn in the end, just being an in-state prospect in Alabama, and Auburn had just positioned themselves well. Now, I interviewed him. He said LSU's at the top of the list coming off the Bayou Splash, but we knew going into the visit he had a decision date set for yesterday. And so when he said that, it was kind of a grain of salt. We mentioned in our story that On3 had Auburn as the heavy favorite. So sometimes these guys might, make a little bit of a, not to make a pun off the Bayou Splash, but a little bit of a splash, trying to drum up some intrigue. And I think that's what happened there ultimately with Anquan Fagans. And LSU has, gotten Jace Thomas. They're in the mix heavily for five-star Jonah Williams, another elite safety prospect. So they're still recruiting him. And it wasn't too surprising when Fagans ultimately picked Auburn. And that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. The guys try to drum up some interest. They're late before their decisions. But with Jacob Bradford, he's somebody that has some nice offers to his name over the course of his recruitment. I believe Vandy, a couple other high-profile offers as well. His brother Blaine is an elite safety prospect in the class of 2026. And for LSU, they still need to revamp that safety room. So they've got Jace Thomas. They signed a really nice 2024 safety haul, and they can still take Jacob Bradford, Jace Thomas, and then swing for Jonah Williams, who's going to announce a decision on August 24th. So I really think that's kind of the mindset of it. I mean, you want Blaine Bradford, and you can call it a package deal if you'd like, and kind of that end goal being in sight when it came to offering him. But he's also a really highly thought of prospect and versatile too. I think he can play corner, he can play safety, but I expect him to be a safety at the next level. So that was, I think, the thinking of that. And you get him on campus and offer him, and his brother Blaine and him, I believe, are on campus or were on campus Monday for a visit. So that's something to know there, is that I think they just wanted to offer him in person with the family all there.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, look, Jacob Bradford is the number one defensive back in the state for 2024. He's just, or 2025. He's just not his brother. I mean, I don't know that anybody is. All right, a couple more. Speaking of, you brought up Jonah Williams, and Billy Embody's here with us. What's the latest there? Because he was supposed to be on campus for the Bayou Splash. I know he delayed that. So can you kind of fill us in there, Billy?
Yeah, there was actually really bad flooding in Galveston. Pretty well documented bad weather in that area of Houston and Galveston in particular. And so he wasn't able to make it for Friday. He did pop over to Texas the next day, I believe, or somewhere over the course of the weekend. Off the top of my head, it's escaping me when he ended up at Texas. But that didn't really bother some folks from LSU from what I have heard. He is somebody they believe that they're right in the mix for, and right in the top two, if not the favorite. And there's a lot of time between now and August 24th, which, as we saw with DJ Pickett, you and I talked about it at SEC Media Days. There, he had set the decision. Oregon had a bunch of buzz. Miami was in there, but we kind of said, hey, watch LSU. They had a lot of confidence that they had put the right chips in place to land him. And that is kind of the feeling around LSU, with baseball and football being a factor for him. So I still think he's very much in play for LSU. I don't think they're outside of the top schools for him by any means. I think this is an LSU A&M battle shaping up down the stretch. And it's just kind of weathering the storm of the visits that he took to Texas, and then A&M's going to continue to buckle in and try to keep another ball high prospect in the state, because Mike Evans went there. They have some ties to Texas A&M overall, and we'll just see how it goes there down the stretch for him. But he is the number one safety no matter where you look. So a highly thought of prospect that LSU's trying to get over the finish line and get him into this class.
Billy, I got a couple more for you. Khaleke Lockett, we know he's set his commitment date. It's going to be on August the 7th. So it's a week from today, or excuse me, a week from tomorrow, correct? So what's the absolute latest there with the five-star wide receiver?
Yeah, Texas has really emerged as the leader from what we were kind of hearing, and LSU didn't get him on campus for the Bayou Splash, and that was kind of expected. And Texas has been kind of hanging around in his recruitment. He's kind of been a flavor of the week type of guy, at least for recruiting services coverage of him, which he's made visits, and he's been very high on LSU. He's made visits to Florida State or different programs over the course of his recruitment. But I think Texas probably ends up getting him. And after missing on Decorian Moore for them, it's a must that they get one of those five-star wide receivers from Texas. LSU got Derek Meadows. They're still hoping to get Jamie French, the highly touted five-star from Jacksonville. So there are still some receivers left out there, but it doesn't appear like Khaleke Lockett's going to end up at LSU, at least right now.
Billy, last thing for you. LSU's going to start fall camp this week. What does that mean for the recruiting calendar with LSU and the coaching staff obviously hitting the practice field on Thursday?
Yeah, I'll note this. It's a dead period now, but this is also the last year that there's a July recruiting weekend. So it goes totally dead next year with the tweaks to the recruiting calendar that have been made, which is kind of nice for coaches. They go through the run of camps and official visits in June, and, building your class, and a lot of guys making decisions in July. And then to come back kind of after that and have to see, guys back on campus and host them with fall camp. That is going to be a nice change for next year, but it's a dead period now until pretty much September, depending on if you play a game at home the first or that August 30th, 31st weekend. So this really means that they're monitoring these final decisions for the class of 2025 before going to the season, which they'll host official visitors and be able to get out and evaluate players and things like that. So it's kind of that cocoon, so to speak, that you get into with fall camp, and you shouldn't really be worried too much about recruiting outside of waiting to hear those decisions.
Billy Embody on 3 the Bengal Tiger. He's on Twitter at Billy Embody. I'll give him a follow. Thanks, man. We appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.